Looking for games with the best stories to tell? You are in the right video. But first, I have to make it clear. Thank you for all your compliments, but I'm not an AI voice. I'm a real person behind a real microphone. You can actually hear me breathe. Oh my gosh, I am actually alive. Well, so much for that. Don't forget to subscribe and follow for more. Now, let's be honest. When you think of God of War, a mind-blowing story isn't the first thing that pops into your head. I mean, the old games were all over-the-top violence and raging against the gods, right? Well, God of War 2018 is where this series grew up. It still got the brutal action, but this time there is a whole new layer. The story is an emotional gut punch about family, loss, and the whole messy business of trying to be a better person. And messing with gods, of course. The biggest change? Kratos isn't just some rage machine anymore. He's older, he's tired, probably a bit wiser, and most importantly, he's got a kid, Atreus. He's now the dad of War. Their relationship is the messy, complicated heart of the story. Kratos is trying to leave his bloody past behind, trying to teach his son to be different, but old habits die hard, and watching these two buttheads is absolutely riveting. Yeah, there's the big quest, scattering his wife's ashes, fulfilling her final wish, but the real magic is in the in-between moments. Kratos and Atreus bicker. They learn from each other. They fight side by side. It's not always pretty, but you can feel this bond growing between them, even as Kratos struggles not to screw the kid up too badly. Now, let's not forget this is God of War. We're not just wandering through some random forest, we're smack dab in the middle of Norse mythology. Yep, somehow Kratos crossed from Greek mythology to Norse on this one. Anyway, there are different realms with giants, dwarves, trolls, and yeah, even a few gods you might recognize. The game blends its own plot seamlessly, with those classic myths giving the whole thing a sense of epic scale that makes other fantasy games look kinda small. Here's the thing, God of War's story wouldn't land nearly as hard if the game itself wasn't awesome. The combat is satisfying, exploring is fun, and those quiet moments, they're woven directly into the gameplay, so it feels natural. You're not just watching a movie, you're living this journey with them. If you crave action games with actual heart, if the idea of a grumpy ex-god learning how to be a decent dad sounds even a little interesting, or if you just like seeing epic myths twisted into something new, God of War is a must-play. Seriously. It might just change what you think a video game story can be. And I know this game is from 2018, but the release of the sequel, God of War Ragnarok, you can play the game and head straight to the sequel. You wouldn't have to wait 4 years just like the rest of us. Alright, Half-Life 2 is undeniably one of the all-time greats when it comes to video game storytelling. Now, there are tons of reasons for this. The groundbreaking physics, the iconic level design, all that good stuff. But what I truly love is how Half-Life 2 crafts this world and story that grabs a hold of you and just doesn't let go. First up, they nail that show don't tell thing. You wake up as Gordon Freeman on a train with no lengthy cutscenes, no info dump. You're immediately dropped into this oppressive, dystopian City 17. The Combine, this alien force ruling over Earth, is not just about some villain monologuing. You feel their power through the soldiers on the streets, the propaganda blaring on screens, and the fear in the eyes of the citizens. It builds this atmosphere right from the start. The characters aren't just quest givers. Alex Vance and Barney, they're funny, they're flawed, and they feel real. You get invested in them, in their fight. Even the villains are memorable. The cold Dr. Breen, the vicious Combine forces. There is a personality within this world, not just faceless bad guys. Half-Life 2's storytelling shines because it keeps you in the moment. There's surprisingly little in way of traditional cutscenes. Instead, the story unfolds as you play. A radio broadcast while you're exploring, characters chatting while you're solving a puzzle. It makes you feel like you're part of the rebellion, not just a spectator. The pacing is genius. You get moments of action, then quiet exploration to soak up the environment, then conversations that deepen the lore of the world. And Half-Life 2 isn't afraid of a little mystery. It doesn't spoon-feed you all the answers. Who is the G-Man? What exactly went down at Black Mesa? You're kept guessing, theorizing, wanting to push further. Lastly, it manages to be emotionally impactful without getting corny. There's loss and sacrifice and that sense of desperate hope, yet it doesn't feel manipulative or forced. It earns those moments, which makes them hit even harder. The ending still gets me, no matter how many times I replay it. Half-Life 2 shows how games can be an amazing storytelling medium. It's a world you want to explore, characters you care about, a mystery that pulls you in. Even if you're not into shooters normally, Half-Life 2 is a game worth experiencing purely for its narrative. It's one that truly stays with you long after you've put the controller down. Up next, we have a controversial take. Nier Automata has one of the craziest, most thought-provoking stories in video games. Now, I know, there are bigger and better games than Nier Automata, but with Nier Automata, it's not just about the plot itself, it's about how the whole thing is told. Let's be real, most games give you the story pretty straightforward. You know, cutscenes, dialogue, the usual stuff. But Nier Automata, it throws all those expectations out the window. Sure, it starts out like a fairly standard action RPG. You're playing as these cool androids, 2B and 9S, fighting killer robots in a post-apocalyptic world, all that stuff. But here's the thing, it's not enough to play Nier Automata once. You need multiple playthroughs to even start piecing the whole story together. The first time around, you see everything through 2B's eyes. Second playthrough, you're basically playing the same events, but as 9S. And trust me, his perspective shifts everything. It's like getting an entirely different layer of the story, complete with new cutscenes, side quests, and major revelations that will blow your mind. And of course, there's a whole new story once you finish 2B and 9S's storylines. And it doesn't stop there. Nier Automata messes with the actual format of video games. There are moments when it shifts from third-person action to side-scrolling shooter to even text-based adventure. This isn't just about being cool or different. Each shift in gameplay somehow reflects what's happening to the characters and the world. It pulls you deeper into their struggles. But what's the story even about? That's the thing. It's hard to explain without going into crazy spoiler territory. At its core, Nier Automata explores huge philosophical themes like what it means to be human, the nature of free will, and the endless cycles of war and violence. It questions your assumptions at every turn. Are the androids really the good guys? Are the machines mindless monsters? Or are they something more? Well, they certainly are horny. It's heavy stuff, beautifully woven into an action-packed game. No, not that action. 1 minute you're hacking and slashing, feeling like a total badass. The next minute you're witnessing a gut-wrenching or confusing scene that'll make you question everything. Believe me when I say this game will make you a philosopher. And it's no coincidence either. There are characters in the game that are named after famous philosophers. So yeah, this game loves to make you think. Now, when I say Nier Automata has one of the best stories in gaming, it's not because it gives you all the answers neatly wrapped up in a bow. It's because it challenges you as a player, as a thinker, and that experience sticks with you long after you put the controller down. It's unconventional, it's messy, it's brilliant. And if you're up for a story that completely breaks the mold, It's absolutely a game you should check out. And hey, the soundtrack completely slaps too. Alright, so I know this might be a hot take, but stick with me. The Last of Us Part 1 has one of the most powerful stories ever told in video games. The hype around it is huge. It's a general and proven recommendation at this point, but if you haven't picked the game up yet, there's a reason it sticks with people long after they've put the controller down, and it's something you might not want to miss out on. Let's be real, zombie apocalypse stories are everywhere. It's tough to do them originally. The Last of Us throws away the mindless horde trope and gives us a very grounded, very human kind of apocalypse. It's about the survivors, the ones left behind, who have to do harsh things in a world that's already fallen apart. Okay, but why is the story so darn good? First up, the characters, Joel and Ellie. They're not your classic video game heroes. Joel is a gruff, broken man shaped by the brutal world he lives in. Ellie is a kid thrown into the worst possible situation but still has this spark of defiance and curiosity. It's the relationship between them that's really special. The game takes the time to show how their bond grows with all its messiness and complexities. Think of it like a really intense road trip movie where the destination is survival, but the journey is all that matters. You're gonna laugh and fight with these two like you really know them. That's powerful storytelling, making you care that much about pixel people on a screen. The world itself is a no-cookie-cutter apocalypse landscape. Abandoned cities choked with greenery, quiet moments with the clickers lurking just out of sight. It's hauntingly beautiful. The Last of Us understands silence, you know. It lets important moments breathe, give you room to feel the impact. Speaking of impact, get those tissues ready. This game isn't afraid to punch you right in the gut. It deals with some serious themes, loss, sacrifice, and how far you'll go for those you love. The choices you're faced with as a player will stick with you. I still think about some of them years later. It's the kind of story that makes you question what you would do in the same situation. Now, this isn't some artsy, untouchable story. The game is woven into how it unfolds. It's brutal and tense, forcing you to make tough calls on the fly, adding to the sense of desperation and harsh reality. Yeah, you're blasting through infected, but you're also feeling what it's like to live in that world, moment by moment. The Last of Us Part 1 is the kind of game that raises the bar, if that makes sense. Not just for its genre, but for the whole idea of video games as a storytelling medium. It's a reminder that they can be emotional and thought-provoking and make you truly feel connected to the characters and their struggles. The last one on our list is a horror game, Silent Hill 2. But forget the jump scares and the blood-soaked hallways. What really gets you isn't what you see, but what you don't. Silent Hill 2 is a masterclass in building atmosphere. That thick, suffocating fog, a crackling radio that signals something's nearby, the way the whole town feels warped and wrong, that sense of dread is always there, burrowing under your skin. But here's where things get really twisted. The monsters in Silent Hill 2, they aren't just random spooky designs. Each creature is like a physical nightmare made out of someone's deepest trauma and twisted desires. You don't just fight these things, you almost decode them, wondering what kind of pain created this. That's disturbing on a whole new level. Silent Hill 2 isn't like Resident Evil where your main guy is just kinda there. You play as James Sunderland, who slowly unravels before your eyes. He's not a hero, not even likable at times. He's troubled. He makes awful choices, and he's desperately searching for something in this nightmare town. There are reasons he's drawn to certain characters and the way he reacts to the horrors. This game doesn't lay everything out for you. There's open symbolism that makes you want to discuss theories with other fans long after you finish. You'll pore over details in the environment, a single line of dialogue, wondering what they mean. And listen, there are multiple endings, so how your story ends up depends upon what you pick up on as you play through it. This gives the entire experience a disturbingly personal feel. Silent Hill 2 doesn't rely on cheap tricks. It tackles themes way more mature than most games even dare touch. Things like guilt, grief, and the ugliness that lies beneath the surface of even ordinary people. These things aren't comfortable to think about, but that's exactly why the game haunts you long after the credits roll. This isn't just a horror experience, it's a game that makes you question your own darkness, and it does it in a damn unforgettable way. But here's the thing. I know this is an old game by now, 22 years old to be exact, but coincidentally, I just found out that there's an upcoming remake of this game that's supposed to come out this year, so fingers crossed, hopefully there won't be any delays. But safe to say, I'm excited to terrify myself again. Also, I'm gonna play it when the sun's out this time. If you want to check the games out, I left links for them in the description box below. And if you like this video, please consider giving us a subscribe. And until then, this has been Marty, and I'll see you tomorrow.